friends, it's Paige Evans, and I'm so excited to share a new process video with you today. It's no secret that I love hand stitching on my pages. It is something that relaxes me, and I love the texture that it adds. It is also the most time-consuming technique that there is in scrapbooking. Some of these pages that I'm going to flip through took upwards of 30 hours to make, but they are my absolute favorite pages of all the pages that I've made, and I've been scrapbooking since I was 16 years old. I'm about to turn 39, so that's what, 23 years. So this might be my absolute #1 favorite layout. I embroidered this pattern paper from my Bloom Street collection, which came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And so I tore the paper, stitched this side, decided I needed to stitch a little bit more, and this is how it turned out. I used a chain stitch, a back stitch, and French knots. This page is similar to what I'm going to do for my challenge for International Scrapbook Day 2024. I think it was 2021 or so that I issued the challenge to hand stitch. So that's exactly what we're going to do again this year. And it's funny because I was going through the Wonders papers looking for a paper that wouldn't take very long to stitch, and I'm like, oh, geometric shapes won't take very long. Like 24 hours later, finished up this one. So I love embroidering pattern papers. It just turned this whole background into a quilt-like texture, and I replaced, well, I didn't stitch this square, saved myself about, what, 4 or 5 hours of stitching time so that I could have a place for my photo. This next page is stitching one of my Blooming Wild papers. So Bloom Street and Blooming Wild were meant to pair together really nicely. So lots of pastels and flowers, and I poked holes around each of these individual flowers, did a French knot in the center, and then featured a photo of me and my mom. Let's zoom in. This next page, I didn't embroider the pattern, so the background are these painterly swatches, but then I used a stitching cut file to have the machine create the holes of this star frame and then stitched tone on tone. So wherever the pattern was pink, I used pink thread. When it switched to white, I just switched my thread to white. Where it's red, I used red thread, brown, pink, dark blue, etc. And used a back stitch, and I always use all 6 strands of thread when I'm stitching. That's a personal preference. I just really love the full texture of using the entire skein. For this one, I used my Splendid collection. This was made for my book called Make Your Memory, and I showed step by step how to do all these different stitches. There's a chain stitch, there's French knots, there's a back stitch, and then there's also kind of made up stitches in between and on the wings. And I added some texture on the background with these cross stitches. If you can hear my son in the background, they don't have school today, so they're home, and I just don't, I have to film when I can, so that's the screeching. Anyway, I sort of scrap lifted that first page for this one. This is using my Garden Shop collection, which is fall themed, but look, I made it work for winter. These pastels, the chevron pattern, and yeah, kind of just scrap lifted myself here, just switched having the larger portion on the top to the bottom, and then used a stencil between. I think I'm going to use this same formula to make the page for today, for my International Scrapbook Day challenge, which is hand stitching. So the first thing that I do is I bring in pattern papers and figure out which page I want to embroider. This is, again, my Blooming Wild collection, and I've already hand stitched this page before, just a portion of it though. I made this mini album for the Glowforge Aura campaign, and So let's flip to the page where I hand stitched this pattern paper. Here it is right here. So I poked holes down the stripes and then did a chain stitch for all of this really fun texture. So I've already done this one. I like to do new things, so I won't stitch that paper again. I love embroidering flowers. Clearly, I've done that many times with those examples I just showed you. So I'll keep this in the maybe pile. The back side is also a really fun option, but stitching these hearts might be a little too hard because they're so tiny. So maybe the A side. I love this pattern paper, paper number 6. But I've actually done this one before too. I make a memory decks card with each of my collections. And so here is the rainbows hand stitched. It would be really fun to hand stitch this entire background, but like I said, I don't like to repeat myself. So love this, but I'll leave it to somebody else. This paper would be so fun to do French knots through all of the dots, but I'm looking for a little more variety. I want to use all my favorite stitches, the back stitch, the chain stitch, and French knots. So maybe for a rainy day. This pattern paper would be great to embroider because it already has the stitching designs on it. And I have seen people stitch this before. So looking to try something new. There are examples of this paper embroidered in my Happy Scrappy Place Facebook group. Here is this paper that I did embroider. So here's what it looks like before, and then what, like 30 hours, 24 hours later, this is what it looks like embroidered. Love it. So I've already done this one, don't want to do it again. This paper is also fun, paper 15 from Blooming Wild, because you can hand stitch around these hearts, you can hand stitch around the squares using tone-on-tone thread. But a few days ago, I decided I want to embroider this pattern paper. The flowers are very small, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I see it in my mind's eye. So let's get started embroidering this paper. This is the B side of paper number 4 from Blooming Wild. This side would also be fantastic to embroider all of these hexagons, but I'm feeling inspired by the B side. So first thing, let's trim off the barcode strip, and like I said, I'm going to scrap lift those 2 layouts with the torn sections. So I am going to, let me bring in those papers so I can reference them for the tearing. Okay, so it's these ones. And let's see, let's just do this. Let's not think too much about it. Let's tear. Actually, do I want the white? Yeah, let's have the white core showing, why not? So tear from corner from edge to edge. And then we'll tear off this bottom portion too. So then that leaves this whole middle section that I don't have to embroider. So let me see if that leaves room for a photo. To do that, since I tore out the middle section, I'm gonna grab a piece of 12 by 12 white cardstock, just a second, and trim off the barcode strip. Sorry, I'm making this on the fly, so you're getting all the steps. I will need to add this onto a piece of white cardstock anyway when I'm finished, so might as well just do it now. So let's add these papers just to see if there's enough space for a photo. Perfect, we'll tuck it in here. So it's looking just like this one. The only difference is I tore towards me, so it's revealing this white core, which I'll be able to lift up and create some texture when I'm ready. So this whole section, I don't have to embroider. That's going to save myself a lot of time. And now we need to pierce all of the holes. So you'll need a foam mat and a paper piercer. So my plan, friends, I'm going to zoom in. So let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing, in the center of every flower, I'm going to pierce a hole, and I plan to do a French knot after I do the star stitching. So stars, I'm just going to pierce a hole at the end, the very end of each petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then going to stitch like a star shape. I just did this for my mini album that I taught in Texas, and let me bring that in so you can see. Here's the mini album with the star stitch. So it kind of looks like sand dollars, looks like flowers, looks like stars. So we're going to repeat this stitch on these. But first step, like I said, poke a hole in the center of every flower, and then at the very end of all 5 petals. These flowers are small, so you just want to make sure you get to the end of the petals so you have the most room and the least chance of tearing your pattern paper, because paper is thin, paper tears, but with practice, you're going to be an expert stitcher. So just poking these holes, piercing the holes alone is probably going to take a couple hours. And so I'm just about to leave to take my kids to the dentist to get their teeth cleaned. So I'm planning to bring this with me so that I can work on this while they're getting their teeth done. And I'm sure my nails are gonna change, my outfits are gonna change. Hopefully the lighting won't change too much, but this is what I'm doing. Exact same thing, repetition. Poke a hole in the middle, poke a hole at the end of all 5 petals, and then once all of the holes are poked, I will find thread colors to match the colors of all these flowers. Okay, so I will leave you to it, and I will check back in once I've got all of the holes poked. Hello again, friends. In real time, it is 6 hours since I last filmed, but it only took me about 2 hours to poke all the holes, only, quote unquote. So let's see if you can see the holes through there, and I've poked the holes through both pieces of torn pattern paper. So the next step is to find coordinating threads. Once upon a time, I went to Joann's and bought one of every single color of thread. Took a really long time to check out because they had to scan every single barcode. So what I'm going to do is just open these up and find all of the colors. I think there's like 15 or so, at least, different colors, and it's going to take a long time. So I will just pick the threads off camera and then come back in and show you which ones that I chose. We're getting there. Well, we really haven't even started, but one step at a time. In real time, it is now the next day. It's Saturday, 1 week before International Scrapbook Day, so I've got to get a move on this. I went through all of those threads and found 18 colors to match the 18 different colors of flowers. These I will list in the description of this video, so if you want to purchase these DMC threads, you can use the exact same colors that I am using that match Blooming Wild and this pattern paper. So I am going to zoom in and we will do the star stitch or the flower stitch. I'm not sure if this has an official name, but that's what I am going to call it. Let's start with my favorite color. It's like a fuchsia raspberry pink, DMC thread number 3804, and I am going to trim about an arm span. So from arm to arm, trimming thread. Use a pair of thread scissors to trim it off and thread your needle. I will leave a link to the needle that I use. So thread the needle, give it a 4 or 5 inch tail, and then tie a knot at the opposite end. like this. Okay, let me make sure I'm still in view. Great, so let's do a stitch. Start with this one right here. This is important. Don't start in the middle, because in the middle we're going to do French knots, and we don't want our knot at the end of our thread to get in the way. So you want to come up through, not the middle, that's a good demonstration for what not to do, but through one of the petals, it doesn't matter, start at any one of the 5 petals and bring your needle up through and pull the string until the knot catches on the back. Don't pull it too hard, we don't want to tear the knot right on through the paper. And then go down through the middle. And pull the thread until it's taut, not tight. We don't want to tear the paper. Go up through the next petal. Do this from the back. Let's go to the next one over. Doesn't really matter if you do the next one over, as long as you stitch all 5 petals. Pull the thread until it's taut and go back down through the middle. And this is why you don't want to go through the middle, because otherwise you'd catch the knot and it just makes a big mess. Okay, so then bring your needle up through the next petal. Again, let me just try and go in clockwise fashion. Bring the needle up through and down through the center. Okay, so up and out the next petal. We're on the 4th of 5. If you get a knot, it's bound to happen. Just carefully undo the knot and pull, and then go back down through the center. So we've done 5 petals. We have 1 more. Oh, we've got another knot. Slow and steady wins the race. Out the last petal. Pull until the thread catches. And down through the center. So I'm not going to trim off my thread. Oh, got another knot. I'm not going to trim off my thread. I'm simply going to move on to the next same color. So down here, here's my next raspberry pink flower. So again, repeat this for basically the entire page. Start at one of the petals, so not the center, starting at a petal and go down through the center. Go out the next petal, pull until the thread's taut, and go down through the center. Pull until the thread's taut. It's getting a little twisted, there we go. And go out the next petal. Okay, pull until the thread's taut. Go down through the center. Go out the 4th petal. Pull the thread. Go down through the middle. And then go out the last petal. Oh, see, thread gets caught, but it's okay. Just carefully undo the knot. Go out the 5th and final petal. And go down through the middle. And that is the same stitch that I will do for every single flower on this entire background for both pieces. So it's going to take me quite a while to do these, but I'm excited to see how this turns out. So I will stitch all of the fuchsia flowers and then come back and show you how that looks before moving on to the next color. Hello friends, I know I said I would check in after I was done with the first color, but then it got dark and I just decided to keep stitching, so I'm just about halfway done. Let me bring it up closer so we can see the stitching. I've put in about 12 hours of stitching so far, so I think we're looking at about 24 hours. It takes a minute to stitch every flower, but I haven't counted how many flowers there are. There are a lot. At this point, I don't think I'm going to do a French knot in the middle. I just don't have enough hours in the day. And it might cover up too much of the flower part. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure yet, but there's my check-in, hoping to finish it today. Today is Sunday, April 29th or 28th, one of those days. And okay, just gonna keep stitching, doing this flower stitch or star stitch. It is now Monday afternoon. I finished stitching right before I went live for Make With Me Monday. See if I can zoom in and show you. Yeah, so I'm not going to do the French knots in all of the flowers. I think it might cover up too much of them because the flowers are so tiny. And I need more hours in the day. So if somebody wants to take on that challenge and add a French knot, I think it would look amazing. So just like my previous layouts that I'm basing this on, I want to add some stenciling into this open area. And so I am going to use one of the freebie cut files for International Scrapbook Day 2024 and shrink it down to 6 inches square. It's a flower background, and I'm going to cut that out from my Cricut, bring it in, and we'll do some stenciling. So I shrunk this 12 by 12 flower background cut file down to 6 inches and welded it together. But with Cricut, you can only cut to 11.5 inches. So I know I'm going to add my photos somewhere. I wonder if I should just cut it back in half. And you know what? That's what I'm going to do. We're scrapping on the fly. You're getting to see how my brain works. So it's all going to work out in the end. I'm going to bring in my scratch paper that I use for doing mixed media. So let me put this down. Okay, so I looked up and my camera had stopped filming, so I'm not exactly sure where we were, but essentially I've got scratch paper on the background. This is where my pattern papers are going to be, so I am going to line these up like this and scrape across them with modeling paste. So this is Liquitex modeling paste and a palette knife. So it's been a long time since I've done mixed media like this. That was the modeling paste. Squeeze a healthy amount onto the palette knife. There's a dried bit right there, so I'm just gonna peel that off and scrape right on over. So instead of using a traditional stencil to do this, I'm using one of the cut files from International Scrapbook Day, just so you can see that there are many ways to use cut files. So just scrape on over. I've run out, so adding more. And the opening isn't this wide, so you don't need to go all the way from edge to edge, but just a good covering. And then my photos will go in between. So let's carefully lift this off and repeat for the other side. So squeeze more modeling paste onto the palette knife. Oop. Line this up and scrape right on over. So this dries pretty quickly. Just add a bit more. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Uh-oh, nudged. I should have been holding it. It's okay. It's just paper. All the way to the edge. And then lift off the stencil. Hopefully it's not too, no, it's not too bad. So then I'm not going to press this because I don't want to get it wet, but just want to make sure it's filled in. Great. So I'm going to let this dry and then continue on. The modeling paste is now dry. So let's attach the pattern paper stitched pattern paper panels in place. That's fun to say. So I am going to use liquid glue, my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. Oh, I forgot to show you the back side. Look at the back sides, friends. That's kind of cool looking, actually. Now I'm mighty tempted to use this side, but just going to glue these in place. So add a little glue around the left and top. And if this doesn't work, I'll use sticky double-sided tape, because I'm not sure if the liquid glue is getting onto the threads, but we shall see. And line it up with the background and press in place. I'm gonna stand up so I can see. Press. It's a fun texture. Wish you could feel that. And then repeat for the bottom piece. So adding liquid glue along the straight edges, but I'm not adding glue along the torn edges so that I can still tuck my photos and die cuts and embellishments and other things that I want to add underneath. So add liquid glue and press in place. I'll wait for this to dry. I have 2 recent photos of Jane. These were taken just a few days ago. All of the trees are blooming. They're so beautiful. And I've printed them to 3x4, so I'm going to tuck them behind like this. And then bring in some floral die cuts. I have 1 or 2 in my possession. So let's see, just tuck some flowers. And then I'm going to cover this torn edge with a bunch of die cuts. I'm not gluing anything down yet. I want to be sure of the placement first before I commit with liquid glue. So just adding these across that torn edge. And then I'm going to step back off camera, sit with this for a little bit and make sure that this is the direction that I want to go. As far as the title, I was looking at the chipboard stickers and I saw this hello and I wanted to write hello spring, but there's a lot of green going on this page already. So then I was looking through the sticker book and I saw this one that says hello as well, and it's lighter and brighter. So add that and then use the thickers to spell spring. So hello spring, and I want to use a variety of the colors of these thickers. SP, let's do a green R, a yellow I. Oh, that's not yellow, that's green. Hold on, I can't decide, there's so many colors. Let's do a red R, yellow, nope, green I, yellow N, and then a pink G to mirror and balance the pink S. So the title is Hello Spring. And then I need to figure out a spot to add journaling. I think I'll add a little something something over here for balance. So I've got the title on the left and journaling on the right. So I'm going to sit back, think about this layout for a little bit and make sure this is the direction I want to go. So I let the layout sit overnight and then decided to glue everything down. So I glued the flowers across that torn edge and then attached the title and photos in place. The only additional things I added were, let me bring this up closer so you can see, mini puffy flower stickers across, and then a tab and journaling spots for my journaling. So I hope this inspires you to try giving hand stitching a whirl, maybe not on this scale, but something a little smaller. You can work your way up to doing a full-blown embroidered background. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see the projects that you create based on this challenge, and happy International Scrapbook Day 2024.